I don't want to be extreme, but it is a violation of the child. You can hit with the pants over, but usually she didn't. But the one time that she did, I'll never forget it because I already had said this story where when we lived in Brooklyn, we lived in a 2-family home. And I could never forget that beating that I took because
this is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. Our brains are imprinted and programmed by our surroundings. What we know as normal may be seen as insanity to others. Until we have something else, different is a concept that cannot be grasped. Those who are oppressed do not know they're oppressed until they see an alternative. Once that moment is realized, it is impossible to unring that bell. Your eyes open and the world suddenly becomes that much bigger. One of the beauties of the human experience is that we have the freedom to express our individuality. The majority of the world takes this gift for granted. While it is true that we herd up, we must be cautious of what tribe we choose. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media. That way you can find out exactly what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Chasya, a new friend, to talk about the suffering of cults. Chasya is going to tell you a story about her past, and it's amazing because I've heard it. I've heard parts of it. We're going to put a little different spin on it tonight. Thank you so much for coming in.
thank you so much for having me.
Before we get into anything, because I don't want to get involved too deep into a conversation before I give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as retired police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So, Chasya, every week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Snoogans, and I'm a big Jay and Silent Bob guy, so I picked this one out for that. But it's a great question. When does somebody deserve your gratitude? You know, we're all tied up in this world and being mad at this person for this and mad at this person for that, but eventually you have to give gratitude to somebody in your life. So when does somebody deserve that in your life?
The word deserve is where that's where I hiccup. I think that to be a gracious human being and to have gratitude in life is always going to be a more powerful way of being versus being resentful and being full of self-pity. If you have gratitude, you count your blessings and you realize that life isn't that bad. But when it comes to human beings, I mean, when somebody does something nice for you, when people are altruistic, the simple things, when people open a door for you, when people have manners. I mean, I'm a very gracious person, so I give my gratitude, if they, do something kind, do the right thing, and sometimes even if they don't.
I thought you were going to get to this because I don't like the word deserve.
Right.
Okay, that word deserve kind of turns my stomach. Nothing is deserved in this world, in this life. Nothing is deserved. Everything is earned. Okay, you don't deserve to have a fancy house up on the hill or $1 million car, or nobody deserves it. You earn it, because when something is, you feel that you deserved, you're almost like a victim. I deserve this because I'm living and breathing. No, you earn this. And when you earn something, you become much more grateful, right? So
Absolutely.
So for me, gratitude, I give my gratitude a lot more freely than I used to when I was younger. I used to give my gratitude when somebody did something kind for me. Hell, thank you very much. And I'm a please and thank you type of person. I used to give my gratitude only when something was given to me freely or given to me with good intentions. Ever since my shooting, my gratitude and the giving of my gratitude has changed drastically. I give gratitude for those people who don't treat me well, who treat me poorly. You want to know why? Because I learn more from them. I don't really learn anything, and I am grateful for somebody holding the door for me or something like that. I am. I don't want to minimize that, but I become more grateful for the person who slams the door in my face because they just taught me something about themselves. So I'm grateful for that lesson that they just gave me. So my gratitude, I flipped it on its ear, and my gratitude is given more freely to people who don't treat me right, who don't do the right thing, because they teach me something. They teach me that there are people in the world that may not deserve gratitude, but those are the people that I give gratitude to.
That's very deep and a very high level that you're on.
Took a long time to get here. It took 50 years to get here. So I'm grateful that I even made it to 50. But it was a lot. It was a lot of hard work. So Snoogans, thank you so much for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. And while you're at it, go over and see Gus, 234 Franklin Avenue at Cubita Cafe. Gus is not in the food business. He's in the people business. And if you go there once, you're going to understand it, because when you go in there, you're going to be treated like family, but you're also going to have a fantastic meal by a classically trained chef. So go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey. Go see Gus at Cubita Cafe, and he's going to treat you right. So Chasya, I've seen you on several different shows. I've seen you on Soft White Underbelly. It's nice to have a fellow alumni in the studio. I've seen you on Clark Frederick's podcast. Clark is, family member in here. And I'm overly grateful for you because I know your story, and it's a subject that we haven't really touched on because we try to stay away from two things in here. We try to stay away from politics, and we try to stay away from religion. But unfortunately, religion in itself is a good thing, but religion can be bastardized. So how you grew up is of great interest to me. So why don't you give our audience a little bit about yourself and tell us how you grew up?
I was born in California, which I wish we stayed, but unfortunately my mom called it Sodom and Gomorrah. So
I might have to agree with your mother on this one because I was just there. Yeah.
I mean, she's not wrong, but
No.
there's also great parts of California.
Yes,
And you can't generalize an entire humongous state. So she wasn't happy there. And my father, being a rabbi, he got a job out there. And my mom was very, very unhappy there because, God forbid, she sees disrobed women, and to her that's just unacceptable. And we moved. My parents are both from New York. And my dad grew up in the Lower East Side, and my mom is from the Bronx. And we moved to Brooklyn, Flatbush.
Now, what sect of Judaism are we talking about? Are we talking about Orthodox, Reformed, Hasidic? What are we looking at?
So there's like a whole spectrum in my family. We have modern Orthodox. We even have a cousin of mine married a non-Jew, and she converted. They live out in Texas. And then we have family that, lives in the Middle East, super normal. Normal means
I understand what you're saying.
they have the spirituality, but they also follow tradition, but they're not going to freak out if you get in a car on the Sabbath. You know what I mean?
They take a step into the modern world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's this beautiful balance.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not judgmental. And then you have the other side of the spectrum where there's ultra orthodoxy and Hasidic. And my dad, he is what you call, he wasn't born into the radical extremist Judaism. What happened was, I don't know what exactly happened, but a lot of people in our culture go to Israel. It's like this badge of honor. I know there's so much going on there, so I feel bad bringing it up.
Israel's been a hotbed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. This is just the latest chapter in their hardships.
And I feel like I do have to say that I feel extremely awful and sad for the innocent people that are being completely decimated. And I feel for the other side as well. As when I went to Israel, I got to see how terrifying it can be. I witnessed.
See, the thing that hurts me about that is Israel is one of those places. It's like on my bucket list of places I want to go.
You should. It's
All right.
beautiful.
And while I am religious, while I am a Christian, there's history there, and I'm all about history. I mean, there's the Western Wall, there's the Temple Mount, there's there's all these things that you've only read about, and you get to see them with your own two eyes. Now, I'm going to tell people this, and people aren't going to believe me. You can read all day long about something, but when you are actually there, seeing it with your own eyes and putting your hand out and touching something, there's a different connection. So that's the beauty of Israel. And aside from the religious connotations that Israel has, it's a country that's rich in history, rich in tradition of all different walks of life.
It's the land of milk and honey.
Yep.
When I tell you the peaches are the size of grapefruits, everything there, the food is better. The girls are freaking gorgeous.
Tel Aviv, I've seen pictures of Tel Aviv.
Oh my goodness, you go on the beach in Netanyahu and it's like, oh my God.
So I remember that during the first Gulf War, where they had a camera crew out in Tel Aviv because Tel Aviv was getting bombed, and they were showing pictures of the beaches, and I'm like, where the hell is this? I gotta take a little vacation. I was unmarried at the time. I was like, I gotta take a little vacation out here.
You could take wifey now and still have fun, you know?
Yeah, but there's too many girls in Tel Aviv. No, I'm just kidding. My wife, I don't know whether my wife would appreciate Israel in much the same respects that I do. You know, I'm a little older, I'm a little wiser, and I would be there like it would be a pilgrimage for me. It would be an absolute pilgrimage for me. But so do you think that your father may have gotten radicalized there?
Exactly. Let's back up. So when my father went to Israel, he went to a extremely religious, it's called the yeshiva. And he graduated the top of his class, honors. He was going to be the next leader, you know. He was such a top tier scholar that a man, my aunt, his sister told me this. He never told this to me, but his sister told me, my favorite Aunt Debbie, she told me that someone offered my father 50,000 shekel to go on a date with his daughter. And my father was so holy and so devout. He said, I have to, unfortunately, not accept your offer because I don't want your daughter to think that I'm going on this date with her for the money. And he declined the date.
Is that woman still available? Because I could use 50,000 shekels. Every religion. Think about all the bad things that have been done in the name of religion. Every religion. And I'm not taking a crap on Judaism, and I don't crap on any religion, but there are certain sects within every religion, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, that are radicalized. And they get this in their head that I'm right, you're wrong, and that's just the way that it is. And it couldn't be further from the truth. There's many different areas of gray. It's never just black and white.
Never.
Yeah. So he brought that radicalism back to the States.
He also got so much respect. He got so much, everybody just always bowed to him, knowing that he would be this top tier scholar. And I can't think anybody would want to give that up.
Well, you get drunk on power. You get drunk on that power a little bit. You know, if you're a person of any type of power, it goes to your head. It's the Elvis syndrome. And you know, listen, I got Elvis sitting right there. He's one of my favorites. If all day long you're having people tell you you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, it's going to get into your head, and eventually you may even believe it.
Definitely. I mean, we do not sit in his chair till this day. If I am kind of an outcast now, but if I brought a friend over and they didn't know it was my father's chair, my mother would snap and be like, you're sitting in the head of the household's chair, get up and move. And I'd be like dying of embarrassment. He's treated like a king. He's fed first. He has his chair. I remember my mom cooking 3 dinners, a dinner for his palate, her dinner, and the kids' dinner. Like,
that sounds exhausting.
Oh my gosh. My mom, I don't know how she did it, because being a very parentified child, I mean, the Sabbath starts Friday night and it goes to Saturday night. And my mother wouldn't let me leave the house from Thursday until Sunday morning. I'm one of 8 kids, and I would have to prepare, because there would be 8 kids plus the parents, and my grandparents lived in the basement. So it was a huge, huge family. And my dad would say the reason why he wouldn't like to have guests was because he's so religious that he would be afraid that the guests would speak evil about others, which is a sin. It's called lashon hara in Hebrew, which is speaking badly about others, which is a big sin in our religion. And he was so religious that he didn't even want to have guests over, because he would be afraid that at a Sabbath table, sin would occur.
I have a very good friend of mine who is a rabbi, and he was raised Hasidic, and he grew up in New Lots. So he sort of schooled me. Like, he was telling me a story that ultra-religious Jewish people will actually hire Gentiles to turn the lights on and off.
Absolutely. It's called Shabbos goy. Do you know what a goy means?
Yeah.
It's a very derogatory term, but the actual meaning of it, goy means really from the other nations. It does have a derogatory connotation to it, but goyim means other nations.
I've heard goyim. Quite a bit. I think we should bring that back, and we should reclaim that. Goyim.
Hell yeah.
I'll say goyim, please. How about that? We'll start taking that one back.
There's goy, there's shiksa, there's shagets.
My little shiksa. Okay, so Jerry Lewis, Jewish, married a Gentile, and his production company, and anybody who wants to check this out, his production company's name was My Little Shiksa.
I love it.
And how do I remember that? I can't remember people's birthdays, but I can remember Jerry Lewis's production company. Figure that one out. So when he got radicalized before you were born, is that correct? All right. So you were born into this, and you knew nothing else. Like, this is normal to you. Tell me some of the things that you had to do as a young lady.
First and foremost, at the age of 3, we already have to wear. We have to cover our wrists, our collarbone. These 2 bones right here have to be covered.
They don't want anybody to get sexually aroused, correct?
Right, from these sexy collarbone right here. You have to have the knees covered, and then as you get older, your ankles have to be covered. So when I turned 3, that was the last of me being able to wear, the pretty frilly socks. And I would have to wear high up socks so that my legs weren't exposed at 3. Which, if we think about it, it's like, why are we looking at a 3-year-old and objectifying them and already making them think that at 3 we have to cover up like that?
There is every deviation in every walk of life that you could possibly imagine. There is child predators in every neighborhood, in every religion, in every job. They're just out there.
But it's what you wear. It's not going to stop a predator.
This is 100% true.
Because that's something my mom would challenge me with. She was a victim blamer and a victim shamer. If somebody acted in a way that was inappropriate, she would say to me, well, what were you wearing? Instead of, who's this person? Let's get their name down and let's report them. She never saw it as, we have freedom of choice. You can't act like an animal. If you go to court and somebody violates you, the judge is not going to say, what were you wearing to make him do that? That person has freedom of choice, and he's not an animal, and he decides what he's going to do.
Well, that carries over in both areas, because when I was in school, and back then teachers could hit you, and when they hit you, it wasn't don't hit my kid, it was what did you do? You understand, where no kid should be hit by a teacher, but there's some good to that and there's some bad to that because with the hitting portion, sexuality aside. So if I'm screwing around, I got punished for it. So, and we've kind of swung so far the other way these days that doesn't happen. It's always take the kid's word first, when sometimes the kid can be a little shit. So
Actually, in the Hasidic community, in the boys' school, the teachers are still allowed to hit the boys.
yeah, it never works because you know why?
No, it doesn't.
When I got hit, I'd be like, oh, if you're gonna hit me, I'm gonna do something.
So when I got beaten, I definitely didn't do something. I succumbed to the victim mentality. Violence, I'm such a gentle person, and getting beat, it ripped my soul apart.
I always figure so it does to a certain age. It did to a certain age with me as well. But it got to a point where I'm like, if you're going to do this anyway, well, I might as well deserve it. You know, I might as well do something to warrant this because I'm getting it anyway. So I might as well act out. And there's two ways you can go. There's certain people that will curl up and just accept it. I'm just not that person.
I was fear-based, you know. It was terrifying. I remember my mom saying, I'm going to start counting, and if you don't turn over, whatever number I get up to is the amount of beatings you're going to get. So it was like you had to offer up your ass to my mom.
Your bare ass?
Well,
because that hurts.
And I'm so happy you brought that up, because imagine, a lot of people may not agree with this, but imagine I walked up to you, yanked down your pants, and threw you over me and started smacking your bare ass.
Some people pay good money for that.
I know, but that's actually a crime.
Yes, it is.
And I don't understand the idea of exposing a child's privates to beat them. Because if we did that to adults,
it's a humiliation thing.
Yeah, I think in a way it's I don't want to be extreme, but it is a violation of the child. You can hit with the pants over, but usually she didn't. But the one time that she did, I'll never forget it, because I already had said this story where when we lived in Brooklyn, we lived in a 2-family home. And I could never forget that beating that I took, because I, unfortunately, I was very bored. We don't have TVs, radios, nothing. The books, super boring. There's no secular anything. Everything is policed. Everything is straight Gestapo, you know?
You're living in a Nazi state, propaganda included.
Basically.
Yeah.
And we would be downstairs a lot, and me and my neighbor, we were good friends. And the older brothers, unfortunately, I was a very easy target. Now I know why, because I'm a gentle, empathetic person, and I'm not mean by nature. I had to learn to become that way. I had to learn, not mean, but I had to learn boundaries, limitations.
You had to learn that you had a certain power.
Exactly. I don't have to be a people pleaser, and I don't have to take shit.
You know what the funny thing is about that religion, and I know how the Jewish people feel about the Nazis, okay? And for good reason. However, they hate them, yet they're becoming them.
They have internalized the trauma, just like I know it's not my place to speak about the Black community, but when you have, we could take it back thousands of years, the Spanish Inquisition, and all of the exiles that the Jewish nation have been through, it becomes internalized. And I think the Holocaust being pretty recent, our great-grandparents,
I knew a lot of
the ones that
Holocaust
are still
survivors.
alive,
Yeah.
still had the numbers on their hand.
Well, the funny thing about that is if they had the numbers, that means they were at Auschwitz, because Auschwitz is the only one that gave numbers. But very, very few people know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Auschwitz is the only one that tattooed numbers.
Okay.
And I actually knew somebody who was at Auschwitz, and they recently passed about a year ago. And her husband was at Dachau. So, but it sounds like what you're describing to me with the manipulation and the propaganda and just the mind.
The separatism, the elitism, thinking like they can't mingle with other humans.
It's an interesting parallel. I don't know if you find it as interesting as I do, Nazis hated Jewish people. They don't even know why. And if you want to know why Nazis hated
It wasn't only Jews. I'm sorry for
gypsies,
interjecting.
you're right, gypsies and gays,
blacks.
all of it. So anybody that they were able to dehumanize. And if you want to know why that happened, watch the opening scene. You ever seen the movie Inglourious Bastards?
Hell yeah.
Okay. So that opening scene is that guy, Christoph Waltz, is probably the best actor I've ever seen in my life because
Yes.
he made you hate him. But he explains very perfectly the hate towards a group of people by the squirrel and rat thing. And I'm not going to go through it all.
Genius analogy.
And it is Quentin Tarantino obviously is the writer of that. But what a beautiful, not beautiful, but horrifying way to put the hate, because they don't even know why they hated them. They just hated them. But I did hear this story about especially the German Jews. The German Jews were given jobs because they were always seen as less than, and they were given jobs that nobody wanted. But German Jews who were industrious people found out a way to make those jobs successful, and they sort of took over the lower class jobs but made them high class jobs, and then the Germans hated them for it. Well, you gave them scraps, and they made an 8-course meal, and now you hate them because they made lemonade out of lemons. But when they bring that stuff to this country, especially he was you said he was ultra-Orthodox. Is that how you would classify him, your father?
Yes.
Okay. So being ultra-Orthodox, he's doing the same thing that I'm sure he spoke poorly about. I don't know of any person that's not any Jewish person that's a Nazi sympathizer.
My dad is the biggest racist you'll ever meet, a homophobic, all that stuff. Even my friends weren't up to par to be allowed in my home.